Greetings, Earthlings. Welcome to Nature Obscura, a podcast where nature and the supernatural collide. I'm Marissa.
And I'm Grace. Each week, we share spooky happenings from the great outdoors, from cryptids to curses, ghosts to witches, and everything in between.
Grace, before we jump into our main story, what eerie or earthy encounter did you have this week?
So I have more of an earthy/animal encounter. It actually just happened today, and it kind of goes with the theme as far as like animals go. But I actually got to go to the Toledo Zoo today. We were dropping off animals for them. So I was really excited. We got a whole tour of the facility, behind the scenes tour, and we got to see all of the reptiles. They have a giant Nile crocodile that is about 17 feet long. It was amazing, beautiful, and very scary all at the same time. We also got to tour the bird department because our guide, I was kind of talking about birds a lot.
He got the hint. He's like, I got to show this girl the
hint.
birds.
Yeah, he made a call and we got in. So we got to see the birdhouse and it was just incredible. I love it. They were doing renovations of the birdhouse, cleaning enclosures. Same with all of the reptiles and stuff. But just the whole thing was amazing. It was a really great time.
That's really cool. I was able to do a behind-the-scenes tour of the reptile house in my herpetology class in college because, our herpetology professor knew the guy that ran the herp department, and it was so amazing. I'm so excited you're able to do that. Did you see the tuatara?
No, it was in a different portion of the facility that we didn't get to. But yeah, they have so many different species, and just the enclosures that they have for them, even behind the scenes, is beautiful. And they have a new enclosure that's more of an open enclosure. There's just lizards, all types of lizards just roaming around. They also have a tropical arboretum that have free-ranging dart frogs. It was incredible. I loved it so much.
Oh my gosh. I have to go back to the Toledo Zoo. I haven't been in a minute. And I think last time I was there, the birdhouse was closed because of avian flu. I definitely need to go back.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would love to go with you. So what about you? Any spooky or naturey happenings for you?
I had not actually spooky, but still definitely spooky vibes. I went to a very much so dying mall in a small town. It was like a liminal space. The place was half lit. I feel like half the lights were shut off. More than half the stores were empty. Just super strange. It didn't disappoint. I went to one store that was open and they just had cats running around.
No
cats in a mall just running around. And the store wasn't related to animals at all. I was just like, what's going on? And then
weird.
We're shopping in that same store with the cats. And then all of a sudden, a group of children, I don't understand children ages. They could have been between the ages of 5 and 8. I don't know. They're just like, all right, let's spread some Christmas cheer. And then they just started singing to the store, all off key. And I know kids all singing at once can be endearing, but it can also be terrifying. And it was leaning towards the latter, but it was just strange.
This sounds like a horror story in its own way.
It just added to. They had a church in the mall. And I'm like, what is going on?
This just keeps getting stranger, very eerie.
And it's the mall where I met, 15 years ago, during Twilight's prime. That's where I met Carlisle from Twilight.
No way, you met him?
Yeah, I didn't tell you about that?
You never told me about that. I know you love Twilight.
I have a signed photo with him, and I'm wearing my I Dreamt of Edward Cullen t-shirt.
I have to see this.
The thickest side bangs you've ever seen in your life. Yeah, I'll have to find it. It's at my parents' house somewhere. But yeah, I met him in that mall, and just to see how much 15 years can change.
I haven't been to a mall in years.
Yeah.
And I kind of don't want to go now.
Not that one.
Wow.
It was weird.
That was something that, makes me not want to go to a mall.
None of the cats were friendly either. We were trying every single one. It was not working.
What store was it?
It wasn't a brand store. It reminded me of a flea market, but inside of a single store where I could tell different areas were from different local vendors. There was someone that made pixel art. There was someone with their 3D printed stuff. We were caught up in the croc charm section. They had
croc charm. Oh my
God. Course. They had all the croc charms you can imagine. 3 for $1. Good deal. I didn't get any for myself, but yeah, we got some for our roommate.
Wow. Crocs in general are scary to me, so.
Yeah, I know. Speaking of crocs, I don't think they're present in this current habitat we're about to go to, but...
No, definitely not. Crocs are not native to California. All right, so shall we get started then?
Let's do it.
Today's supernatural encounters take place in the Mediterranean mild climate of the Santa Lucia mountain range, a coastal mountain system in west central California, where nature rules, but so do old legends. And today, we're stepping right into the place where they overlap. The mountain range extends about 140 miles from Carmel Bay to the Cuyama River between the Pacific Ocean to the west and the Salinas Valley to the east. On the western slopes, summer fog and low clouds rise up to 2,000 to 3,000 feet in elevation, sustaining moisture-dependent and endemic vegetation and wildlife such as the Santa Lucia Mountains slender salamanders, which are members of the lungless salamander family. This means they don't breathe through lungs, but instead they conduct respiration through their skin and the tissues lining their mouths. As a result, they must live in damp environments on land and can only move above ground in open areas during times of high humidity. The mountain's eastern slopes are considerably drier, forming a rain shadow over the Salinas Valley. Their unique location provides a diverse range of habitats, from woodlands to coastal chaparral. The steep topography and varied soils create a wide array of ecosystems that support equally diverse wildlife. Redwood forests and dry oak woodlands occur here, and these groves are among the southernmost in the world. The range also supports mixed conifer hardwood forests featuring the rare and endemic Santa Lucia fir, as well as grasslands and coastal prairies. The area is recognized as a biodiversity hotspot with many endemic plants, including the Santa Lucia lupine, Phacelia, and Vortrid's spineflower, which is the only plant in its genus, making it monotypic, meaning of one type. While the area is home to several animals the general public considers fearsome, such as black bears, coyotes, and the northern Pacific rattlesnake, the Santa Lucia Conservancy states that these animals are not generally considered dangerous. This is not the case, however, for the invasive wild pigs in the region. In addition to damaging the environment, the Conservancy states that these wild pigs are dangerous and will attack to protect their piglets or if they just feel threatened, with attacks being most common from November to January. In comparison, the coyotes of the area are known to be polite. They will reportedly escort you and any pets away from the vicinity of their den. This behavior is well documented and should not be taken as a threat. Once you have left their territory, the coyotes will typically leave and trot away.
How magical.
I would love that.
I'd love to be escorted politely by a coyote. I didn't know that behavior was a thing.
I didn't either. And the fact that they say it's well documented and just researched, I guess, is incredible. So this forest also provides prime habitat for birds like the marbled murrelet, a seabird that nests inland in moist forests, as well as the California condor, particularly present in the Big Sur region. California condors are the largest North American land bird, with wingspans reaching 9 feet and weights up to 26 pounds. Due to various causes, including lead poisoning, poaching, and habitat destruction, the California condor was on the verge of extinction. The species, which is still listed as critically endangered, declined to just 27 individuals in 1987. But thanks to incredible captive breeding programs and other conservation efforts, the condor has since recovered to over 400 individuals today. These birds are extensively studied by researchers, including the Ventana Wildlife Society, which has tracked and monitored condors in the area for over 2 decades. Their work has allowed researchers to learn more about condor foraging, roosting, and nesting behaviors, furthering conservation efforts to protect this rare species. And as a side note, my husband and I, we visited Pinnacles National Park on our honeymoon to see the condor specifically. But after hiking miles in 90-degree weather, we were sadly unsuccessful. I was pretty bummed, but the park was so beautiful. We would definitely go back in a heartbeat just to see those birds and, of course, the sights.
Aw, that's a bummer you didn't get to see him, but yeah, it sounds like
Yeah,
a beautiful area.
yeah, my husband thought he saw them, but I didn't get a 100% ID, so I didn't count it.
What are your arms length? Like 3? Humans have like a 6-foot wingspan?
I think your wingspan is the height that you are, right? I always heard that.
About
Like, if you
that.
put your arms up,
Yeah.
it's like your height.
That's so interesting.
Yeah, I've actually seen a condor. Have you?
No, never.
At the World Bird Sanctuary in Missouri. So it's close to St. Louis. They have a condor. It's incredible. And whenever I saw it, it was actually sunning itself. So the wings were spread all the way out. So you could see the huge wingspan.
Just showing off his wingspan. That's really
Yeah.
cool. Now that you've done such a lovely job introducing us into the habitat and wildlife of the area, I'm going to dive into the supernatural happenings occurring in this same beautiful region. So, in 2023, a woman named Linda was standing outside her rural home in California when she noticed a figure in the shadows. It was tall, thin, and completely still. There were no features to focus on, only the unmistakable feeling of being watched. She didn't move. Her friend had to pull her back inside. 2 years later, a cousin would independently report seeing the same figure outside at night by her house, and it was gone the moment her cousin had blinked. Linda would later say that she had thought if she had turned her back on it, it would have got her. Encounters like this are not isolated to one place, but they appear again and again along California's central coast. Many parts of the Santa Lucia Range remain relatively remote and undeveloped, and much of the land protected as preserves, wilderness areas, or portions of national forest. The California condor isn't the only elusive presence in the Santa Lucia Range, particularly in the Big Sur region. Another older, darker, and far more mysterious entity is the Dark Watchers. These beings are described as shadow-like figures, extremely dark in complexion, with no discernible features, standing anywhere from 7 to 10 feet tall. They are said to wear capes and/or hats, though no additional details can ever seem to be made out. The Watchers are not a new phenomenon. They have been observed and recorded for centuries, reportedly by Spanish settlers. While some modern retellings suggest an older indigenous origin, there is no verified record of the Dark Watchers in Chumash oral history. Reports of an unsettling atmosphere and the sensation of being watched occur across the range, and despite their intimidating appearance, the Watchers simply observe, showing no signs of aggression. They are most often seen in the late afternoon or evening and appear most frequently to those who are alone and carrying minimal belongings without high-tech gear or similar items. Have you ever heard of the Dark Watchers before?
Haven't. I've never heard of them.
I had heard of them and I knew they were in California, but I didn't really know any of the details. But really, their name does describe what they are. They're all dark and they just watch.
Yeah. Sounds creepy, but not too intimidating so far. But I feel like we're just starting. We'll see.
Right. So several notable 20th century writers helped popularize the Dark Watchers by referencing them in their work. Robinson Jeffers, in his 1937 poem collection, Such Counsels You Gave to Me, wrote, he thought it might be one of the Watchers, who are often seen in this length of coast range, forms that look human to human eyes, but certainly are not human. And this is a reoccurring trend both through prominent figures and just everyday citizens and travelers through this range. They're
Hmm.
human-like, but you have this deep sense that they're definitely not human.
Are they just in this one area?
So, specifically, the Dark Watchers are just known to be in this region, but they are often attributed or likened to shadow beings or shadow figures, which are across cultures, across regions, and really known all throughout the world. And we'll kind of dive more into that in a little bit when we try and kind of decipher and like figure out, okay, what are the Dark Watchers if they're not human? And
Hmm.
shadow figures or shadow beings is something that some people come up with. So, as Jeffers describes, the Dark Watchers are human shaped, but clearly inhuman. Witnesses often report them standing completely still, silently watching. They are said to follow travelers at a distance, always keeping space between them and the observer. That sounds very polite to me, like
That is.
respectfully distant. It'd be scarier if they were increasingly moving closer and closer towards you.
Yeah, for sure.
Some describe them as liminal beings, entities that exist in transition or in two places at once. Others consider them ancient, having existed long before humans and likely to remain long after. Their appearance has drawn comparisons to shadow people or shadow beings, though the Watchers seem far more indifferent and nonchalant towards humans than the deeply unsettling, chaotic dread typically associated with shadow entities. So they've also been compared to shadow people or shadow beings, as we just talked about, which are often considered far more aggressive and chaotic than what the Dark Watchers are
Don't like
described.
that.
No, yeah. Have you ever heard of like just shadow figures or shadow beings?
Not really, no. I mean, just from, kind of like spooky ghost things, like, oh, shadows, but not specifically shadow beings.
So they can appear in like numerous forms, with some suggesting connections to extraterrestrial life or even psychic attacks. But a lot of the time, when I most often hear about them, it's people that have had sleep paralysis or similar. They kind of appear to people during times of sleep paralysis. My brother in particular, he gets sleep paralysis fairly often, which sucks for him. Thankfully, not genetically passed through me to me anyway, but I guess my mom also sometimes does or something, but not me. It's good.
I
But
used to
yeah,
get sleep paralysis in college, and man, I had some crazy, very real feeling experiences. I'll have to tell you one day, but it's just like I thought there were demons haunting me for the longest time.
gosh, that's scary. Yeah, my brother had a few back when I used to live at home because he's a bit younger than me. He had a few where I had to wake him up because I would hear him screaming in his sleep, but it was muffled
Mhm.
screaming because you can't really move. It's very scary. A lot of times shadow beings are talked about during sleep paralysis times, also just like in general hauntings. And one really key factor, it seems, of shadow figures and shadow being encounters is they're often seen in the periphery of your vision versus straight on. And that kind of makes a lot of sense too if you're just seeing kind of shadowy figures because our periphery vision, isn't really used to detect detail. It's used to detect kind of motion rather than anything specific.
And sometimes those are the most eerie because you think you see something out of the corner of your eye and then you look and there's nothing there, but it's like you swore you saw something.
For real. So at my house growing up, we lived there till I was 16. I was like 13 or 14. I was sitting on the couch. I think I might have been like reading a book or playing on my iPod. I definitely didn't have a smartphone yet at that point. And I looked up and the TV was off and the dining room was right behind me. I was sitting on the couch, the dining room behind me, and then there's a door to the kitchen. And I look up, I don't know, just something in me just like had me stop what I was doing and look up. And I looked up at the TV screen and I swear I saw a shadow figure. It looked exactly like a human, but I couldn't make out any details. I saw a shadow figure like 5.5, 6 feet tall, I don't know, walk in the dining room. It was just peeking out and then just like walk into the kitchen.
I got so many goosebumps just now. That is so scary. At the time, what were you thinking?
I like froze, just pretended it didn't happen for like 15 minutes. And then when my dad walked in the room, I told him and I cried because I was scared.
It was such a visceral reaction that you had to it.
Because at first I was like, no reaction at all, but it was like a delayed reaction where it really hit me because it was so clear. And it's not like I was watching a video or seeing a reflection of something on the screen. No one was in the room behind me and it was just so clear. It was crazy.
And you said that wasn't the only experience you had in that house.
No, I had so many experiences in that house.
Oh my
Just
gosh.
crazy.
I love that, but also that couldn't be me. I would be so scared.
Yeah, it was something, that's for sure. I miss that house though, it was a cool house, like, whenever I don't know if this happens to you, but whenever I dream of my house, besides obviously the house I currently live in, I always dream of the house I first lived in as a kid, which was that, like,
Same.
haunted house. I never dreamed of the house I lived in or second house when I moved into as a teen, it's always that house, I'm always there. We're
Yeah.
connected somehow.
Yeah, I'd also dream of my childhood home, our old farmhouse, but I always dream that it is haunted, but I think that's for different reasons because it definitely was not haunted.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. Interesting. So the Dark Watchers are reportedly difficult to capture in photographs or video, vanishing as quickly as they appear. That's quite convenient. This elusiveness aligns with claims that they possess exceptional hearing and keen eyesight, allowing them to blend into their surroundings and avoid detection, perhaps even long before humans existed. They are said to be nomadic rather than stationary, moving their encampments based on food availability and distance from human activity. They leave no tracks, no footprints, and no scent, with even well trained hunting dogs unable to follow their trail for more than a few yards.
That's very interesting to me that they would have a food source.
Right.
Like,
So
what
it,
is it?
it sounds like they eat food raw, eating everything whole and leaving no waste and no evidence of their passage. So they don't use fire for warmth or for cooking, and whatever they're eating whole.
Hmm. So this is almost like people are treating them like they're actually physical beings.
Yes, and some even provide them offerings to keep peace with this entity, including a very famous author.
Suspense.
Dun dun dun! You're going to find that out later in the episode. Stay tuned. But first, encounters of the Dark Watchers echo throughout the range. So before we get into the real juicy content, I'm going to give you some feelers of just some of the many encounters people have had with the Dark Watchers in this region. So while driving at night through Koyoma, a man named Andres and his girlfriend saw something glide across the highway in front of his headlights. Not an animal, not a human. It was a large, shadow-like figure that had no identifiable features, only a tall, dark, humanoid silhouette. Both witnesses saw it clearly, ruling out exhaustion or imagination. Years later, they discovered that the area is associated with Dark Watcher sightings. Andres wrote of his encounter, "If my girlfriend hadn't seen it, I'd have thought I had imagined it too." There's another sighting a couple decades earlier. Dan was a teenager in the 90s when he was hiking in the mountains. Without warning, he felt a sudden, overwhelming sensation of being watched. High above him, inside a cave carved into a sheer cliff face, stood a figure, hooded, cloaked, tattered at the edges. Its face was hidden behind what looked like a thin veil. It never moved. Dan left the area immediately and never returned. Terrified, Dan thought that whatever the figure was, it was said that it could not have been human.
That reminds me of something, actually. So that reminds me of our church, the one that I went to as a child. If you drive past it at nighttime, I think you've seen it. If you drive past it and look up at the roof, you can see a shadow figure, kind of like this was just describing, in the shadow of the light. And we always called it the Grim Reaper. It is very creepy, and I'm not entirely sure the pastor knows it exists.
I love that. I do remember that on your short and sweet home tour, and I was so excited. Like, I think that was one of the first things you showed me when we arrived. Rightfully so. It was spooky and amazing.
It is spooky, and I love going to see it because it is so creepy. And it's ironic that it's on a church.
Exactly. Well, it's just anything that's moderately weird or creepy, you add a church into the mix and it's tenfold. Like, I
Mhm.
don't know what it is about it. It just adds to the creep factor.
It does.
These Dark Watchers have been observed by backpackers, hikers, and everyday travelers along the scenic highway that cuts through the range. They have also been seen by notable figures in the area, such as Billy Post, a rancher and outdoorsman affectionately described in local news articles as the last true cowboy. Billy Post was a direct descendant of one of Big Sur's first homesteaders in an area originally called El Sur Grande. Throughout his life, Billy herded cows, built roads, and trapped and sold bobcat fur. He spent his life on the Santa Lucia Range, deeply connected to the land and the life it offered. In the early 1990s, a large portion of his property became the exclusive Post Ranch Inn, where he became a resident sage and nature guide. Described as charming and passionate, Billy recounted tales of Big Sur during its frontier era, long before Highway 1. Even with arthritis and at the challenges of old age, he continued his beloved natured walks, using an off-road Segway and donning his signature denim and cowboy hat to guide visitors along the trails he had called home all his life. I love that dedication.
I mean, I love the Segway.
I know. I always wanted to ride a Segway.
I never have.
Have you seen, I feel like it went viral in like middle school or like 9th or 10th grade, the chimpanzee riding on a Segway, chimpanzee riding on a Segway.
No, I've never heard that before.
I think it was the original brain rot that kids refer to these days, but it's literally just a short clip, neon colors, a chimpanzee riding on a Segway.
I would say I was gonna look that up, but I do not need that in my head right now.
No, it'll get stuck in your head, and if you don't have a headache, you will after, because it's so bright. So Billy Post not only shared stories of his own life and that of his ancestors, but also recounted otherworldly experiences, most notably encounters with the Dark Watchers. One account states, quote, Billy was riding along a high trail on what is now Post Ranch land at dusk when he noticed a tall, cloaked silhouette standing motionless at the far end of the trail. His horse became nervous. When Billy looked back a second time, that figure was gone. End quote. The Post family maintained a long-standing connection with the Steinbeck family that spans over a century. So here comes that famous author I was talking about earlier. John Steinbeck, the Nobel Prize-winning author of works such as Of Mice and Men, East of Eden, and The Grapes of Wrath, was reportedly a hired hand for the Post family during his early teens. Up until Billy Post's death, John Steinbeck's son maintained contact with him, visiting that post ranch inn during trips to the Big Sur coast to share stories, including accounts of the Dark Watchers. Steinbeck's grandmother, Olive Steinbeck, was said to have encountered the Dark Watchers many times and even exchanged gifts with them. Known for being trustworthy and strong-headed, her stories were widely believed to be true by those who knew her, and she attested to their veracity all throughout her life. So, according to his grandmother, she would leave these bits of fruit and flowers and walnuts, and in return, she would come back to the same spot, and in its place would be beautiful flowers and seashells and pine nuts in return. And it always happened at this one specific cave. So his grandmother said it was like having a simple, civilized conversation with people that were millions of years older than any other humans, which is just so interesting
It is,
and
yeah.
sweet in a way. Like, I don't know, I just simpler times back then. You trade some flowers, you get some, or what did she trade? Traded some fruit, traded some flowers. I got some peanuts or like seashells in return. That's pretty
She seems
cool.
very trusting of these creatures, these figures.
Right. She had even described them as generous. So it was kind of interesting where sometimes you hear about in certain cultures people leaving offerings as a way to appease anything that might have the potential of becoming violent or something like that. But it sounds like they had kind of an even exchange. It wasn't I'm gonna leave you with this so you don't like harm my family. It was like, I'm gonna leave this for you and I'm gonna get something in return.
I don't know if you said this, but is she actually interacting with these beings, or is she leaving something and then she's just getting something in return?
She had never, from what I understood. So, John Steinbeck's son wrote a book all about the Dark Watchers. He co authored it, actually. These are excerpts from that book, and that's where a lot of the information I got for this today's like story from. However, I could not get access to the actual full book. Guess how much money it is? You cannot find it at your local library. I tried.
It's gotta be insanely expensive.
When I last checked, a couple weeks ago, it was like $800. Between 800 and like $1,200.
They must not have any copies, or maybe it's just
Yeah, it has to be like super limited, but it's also disappointing because they did such a good job recounting his family's history with the Dark Watchers and just people's encounters with the Dark Watchers. You think you'd want it more like wildly available or widely
sounds like
available?
somebody doesn't want this information out.
It's a cover up. But yeah,
Mhm.
I was shocked because I'm dedicated. I'm not that dedicated. I'm not dropping a grand on a book. But thankfully, there were excerpts from the book I was able to find online, and the bits I did find were really valuable and like spoke more about his family's history. And he also was the one that was able to provide the information on the Dark Watchers' eating habits. I'd
Hmm.
love to know how they figured that out.
Yeah. That's what confuses me most so far about this, that people are treating them like physical beings, like they have a natural history and that kind of stuff.
Right. So now that we've kind of talked about the lore and the encounters surrounding the Dark Watchers, we can kind of look into some of the explanations that skeptics offer as to what these sightings may actually be. One commonly cited explanation is pareidolia, in which the human brain attempts to recognize familiar shapes or patterns in something unclear or unfamiliar.
That makes a lot of sense.
It's like the Jesus on toast situation.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Yes.
people find Jesus in toast, or like for me, especially when I was a kid or whenever I was bored, if I'm in the shower, like the condensation on the shower tiles, and I would see faces or like that sort of thing. Same way of like
Yeah.
seeing clouds as a dragon or that sort of thing.
Mhm.
Another heavily researched theory involves the broken specters. These specters form when the sun is behind a hiker or observer, casting their shadow onto mist or fog. Their moisture distorts the shadow, making it appear enormous, elongated, and capable of vanishing instantly as the person moves. So the name comes from the Broken Peak in the German Harz Mountains, where the phenomenon was first identified. Under the right conditions, low sun and thick mist, a walker's shadow can appear otherworldly in size and shape. While this is an intriguing and visually dramatic explanation, most sightings were not during these perfect conditions. So some sightings can be ruled away as this. It's really hard to meet this exact like position and criteria and climate to get the broken specter. If you do look at a photo of it, it is pretty otherworldly looking. I definitely recommend taken a peek.
Yeah, I definitely will look that up. But also with some of these stories, what are the odds there's somebody else out there with these people? Especially the people driving in the car. Like somebody's not just walking along the road. I mean,
Right.
maybe, but probably not at nighttime.
Yeah, and you have to be at high altitudes for that. I doubt that sort of phenomenon can occur while you're driving down a highway, right? Like that doesn't make sense. And that's also one reason why I included some of those encounters earlier on is that sure, I guess maybe in some cases people hiking in secluded areas at those high elevations could be experiencing that phenomenon. It definitely isn't ruling out the majority of what's going on and what people are encountering.
Exactly.
Other explanations include simple tricks of light, shadows, or even glimpsing actual people and mistaking them for something supernatural. Though I have to say that it has to be difficult to confuse an average human with a 7 to 10 foot tall, dark shadow, featureless figure. I feel
They're
like you
very
would know the
different.
difference. I
Yeah.
feel like you would know the difference unless it's like, I don't know, really dark and I don't know, it's just but you feel like at that point you're not hiking, you're not moving throughout the trails, like, there should be enough light, but that would be unfortunate, like, let's say you get confused or turned around on your hike, and then all of a sudden, you're starting to see shadow figures behind you.
That's terrifying.
Would you rather have a dark watcher watching you on your night hike or, like, evening hike that turned into night because you got temporarily lost, or have a person that you do not know near you?
That is a hard question.
I listen to too much true crime, and I think I'd honestly rather have a dark watcher. It's in the name, they just watch. A human? I mean, I
But
don't
at the
know.
time, do you know which one it is? Because honestly, if you don't know, it could be either or.
That's true. Could do both. That is very
Yeah.
true.
So I guess I would say Night Watcher too, if I had to choose.
If you
It's like,
had to
okay,
choose.
there's just a shadow friend following me.
Yeah, I'm
Whatever.
a
They're
shadow
watching over
friend.
me.
So, some attribute sightings to oxygen deprivation at higher elevations or to exhaustion, both of which can alter perception and even cause hallucinations if severe. Another explanation, which is often discussed, is infrasound, which refers to extremely low frequency sound around 7 to 19 hertz that falls just below the range of human hearing. Infrasound can be produced by wind, among other natural sources and is scientifically known to cause feelings of anxiety, uneasiness, and fear. I looked into this a little more and they've actually done studies on it. Basically, they put people in a room. Obviously, they have control, test subjects, that sort of thing. They put people to a room and they play low frequency sounds that even though you're not able to hear it audibly, you physically react to it. People are reporting feeling anxiety, fear, nausea. They can even develop headaches. So it's really amazing how the body can react to something even when you can't hear it.
I didn't realize that was a thing at all. In fact, it makes me wonder how technology is influencing our behavior and our emotions because it makes low
Right.
frequency sounds.
That's true. And I think they even used the compared it to like some haunted houses or like haunted museums. In certain areas, they could be possibly playing these low frequency sounds that while we can't hear, it's causing those sensations of feeling uneasy, feeling nauseous, and like something's off. And it's not anything supernatural, it's just them playing something that you can't hear, but getting you to get that reaction. And as a result, probably give their museum good ratings.
That reminds me of what the guy was talking about at that Ouija board museum because he's like, oh, yeah, this guy walked right over to this area and he felt all of those things. I wonder if they really do that.
Right. I don't know. I'll have to look into if they named any specific places. I'm assuming they probably didn't name drop, but I mean, I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, I was just amazed. I didn't realize people could have such visceral reactions. So some people reported chest pressure, chills, dizziness, and just like a general vague sense of dread. So these sensations do match many accounts from people who describe the Santa Lucia range as eerie, unsettling, or difficult to fully convey unless one has experienced it firsthand. So that's something I was seeing again and again when I was researching people's experiences of the area online, where even if they hadn't seen the Dark Watchers themselves, they often describe the area as, well, indescribable. It just has a very strange feeling that's hard to comprehend or really make sense of because you don't understand why you're having this feeling. It's just something about that area is off.
Hmm.
While these scientific and skeptical explanations provide possible insights, they don't account for the consistency and sheer just like scale of many eyewitness reports over this whole region and over the past 200 years. This enduring mystery is reflected even in literature. So John Steinbeck actually wrote about the Dark Watchers in a short story he did called Flight. He wrote of the encounter, quote, Pepe looked suspiciously back every minute or so, and his head sought the tops of the ridges ahead. Once on a white barren spur, he saw a black figure for a moment, but he looked quickly away, for it was one of the Dark Watchers. No one knew who the Dark Watchers were, nor where they lived, but it was better to ignore them and never to show interest in them. They did not bother one who stayed on the trail and minded his own business. End quote. So the legend of the Dark Watchers has continued to grow, giving rise to a small but dedicated form of folklore tourism in the Santa Lucia Range. Visitors come not only for the sweeping views and diverse habitats and maybe peek of those amazing California condors, but they also are going for the chance of encountering these mysterious figures. Guided tours and storytelling events are now offered, often drawing on the first-hand accounts of locals and descendants of early settlers. For those hoping to witness the Watchers without disturbing them, John Steinbeck's son outlined essential rules in his co-authored book, In Search of the Dark Watchers, and they are as follows. Never look at the Watchers directly. Only view them from your peripheral vision. Act as though nothing unusual is happening. Do not point, wave, or make exclamations. Any indication that you have noticed them causes them to vanish instantly. Do not attempt to follow them. Doing so is considered a waste of time, or a fool's errand.
That just reminds me of your story, though, how it says, act as though nothing unusual is happening. Do not point, wave, or make exclamations. Like, you did that.
Right, just ignored it. And I never saw anything like that again in that house. It's probably best just not to draw attention to things like that. I mean, I don't know
Oh,
what good
yeah.
can come of it.
I still get goosebumps thinking of that.
Unless they're giving you like flowers or something. I don't know, like the seashells, like, okay, that's pretty nice. But yeah, I think just ignoring them is a good way to go.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Just stay in my peripheral and we won't have issues.
I'm just imagining being on a trail, beautiful mountain range, it's nice and sunny, and then you just see this all black shadow figure just watching you, and then quickly averting your eyes and being like, oh, okay, look at that bird.
Yeah. And then just only kind of freaking out a little bit later.
Now, what I want to know is California condor sightings in correlation with dark watcher sightings. So I think we've talked about this before, like an eBird, but for cryptids. I want to
Exactly,
see
yeah.
the maps and I want to see where those locations overlap.
Mm-hmm. I wonder if there are any more recent sightings. Like, are people still seeing these beings today?
Yeah, so I think the one from Andres and his girlfriend was from 2016, and there is more recent. So there is multiple forums and of course Reddit, but there's been sightings all throughout the years, including in modern times.
I know I say this on every episode, but I really want to visit just to see if you get that feeling of uneasiness or even just, you catch a glimpse of one.
Right. I agree. I think it'd be cool to visit. I have a feeling I'm going to say that about almost every place we visit each week
I
in
know.
these stories.
As you
Uh,
tell these stories, I'm just planning these vacations, these trips in my
I
head the
know.
whole time.
Because for the wildlife, the scenery, and the hint of something strange and unusual, like that sounds really cool. And yeah, I've never seen a condor, so seeing a California condor or a dark watcher would be pretty cool. I will definitely be looking at the California condor through my binoculars and staring as long as possible, but I'll make sure to avert my eyes for that watcher.
Yeah, that's when you'll see it, just as you see the condor out of the corner of your vision.
Yeah, it's when I'm putting my binoculars up to my eyes is when I see.
So, Marissa, after doing all this research and after this story, where would you put the Watchers on your scare scale? With 1 being not really scary to 10 being like, holy crap, that is the scariest thing I've ever seen in my entire life.
I'm gonna have to go with a 6 or maybe a 7. So I like that they just watch. If they were approaching people, acting violent at all, definitely 9 or 10. But I like that they're just standing, kind of minding their own business. But why are they watching? Like, I want to know why they're watching. That definitely adds to the creepiness factor. And it's also just shadow figures and anything like that. It's hard to make out features and it's eerie.
Yeah, because you don't know what it is. It could be another person, could be a ghost, could be an alien. I mean, you really don't know in the moment. But on that note, I think I would actually give it more of a 3. So while it does scare me more, like, it scares me more after the fact. I think whenever you see it first, you're kind of like, "Oh, what was that?" And you kind of look around and you could probably even rationalize that, "Oh, it was just a shadow. It was something." But then once you think about it a little bit more or even just later, I think that's when it would get scary. Unless it's very clear, like something running across the road. I think I would be more confused than anything. While I do think it is scary, I don't think it's something that would, I don't know, make me pee my pants.
That's valid. I definitely see not being scared in the moment, more so like brushing it off, like, man, I gotta drink more water. I'm getting dehydrated on this hike, but like kind of reflecting on it. And I think maybe that's
Mhm.
something that could be scarier if there was actual photographic evidence. But the thing like with them only preferring people with minimal gear or like less advanced gear on them is really strange. They somehow know what could cause them to get photographed or be identified. Why do they so strongly want to watch us, but them not be perceived? So,
What if they're actually trying to protect us? So, since they are only watching those that are kind of more unprepared, it sounds like they're actually just watching over you to make sure that you get out okay.
I really like that idea. And I actually do think it wasn't as common of a theory, but I did see a few posts, maybe here or there, mention it could be even possibly like a third man syndrome type of situation.
I have heard about this in like survival situations.
Yeah. So what if you're thinking of going two ways on a trail. You see possibly a dark watcher on one trail. He's just trying to warn you, hey, don't go on this one. And you're naturally, I think for the most part, people do not go towards these figures, right? They're going away from them. So yeah, maybe they're just trying to help us and look out for us. I need to know
Mhm.
more about them. I need to, I guess, rake up funds for the $1,200 book so I can figure out how they know so much about their natural history.
I need to know more. Yeah.
For sure.
Also, why is it so expensive? It makes no
I
sense.
don't know. It could be because there's like art.
Or like maybe he's self-published?
So it's yeah, it's story and heart art. So it's Thomas Steinbeck, that's his son's name. In Search of the Dark Watchers, Landscapes and Lore of the Big Sur. Oh my gosh, it's upped in price again. Maybe because it's near Christmas. It's $1,697.
How many copies are there of this?
I don't know, it's only 64 pages. And you know, at least half of
Also,
it are
they can just scan
pictures.
it online.
I know, like I'm so confused. I want to
Gosh.
know.
I feel like if they scanned it online and put it as like an ebook or just like a PDF that you pay for, they could easily make more money
Right.
over the long term. If that's what they're after is money. But I don't know. I think it's a cover up conspiracy theory all the way.
It very well could be. The Dark Watchers are on eBay and they're like bidding. They bought out all the copies.
I love that theory.
We just never know. All right. Well, I think that wraps up this week. Thank you so much for listening to us this week on Nature Obscura. Make sure to follow us on Instagram and Facebook and check out our website. And if you're enjoying the podcast, give us a follow or tell your friends about it. It would mean a lot to us. And also, if you have encountered a dark watcher or have any other creepy tales that involve the outdoors, make sure to send us an email at natureobscurapod@gmail.com.
Stay obscure, Earthlings.
Transmission ending.